All right, everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and get a couple things started. I'm going to put just a layer of paint on for Sgraffito, as well as my dry splatter area. Okay, so I have my 2 cups of water, highly recommended. I have everything in front of me, just to try and make it a little faster. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab some paint color. And I'm going to put it down for the Sgraffito because I need it to dry. I'll get it a little bit darker so that we can better see it. This I just used a dry wash, by the way. Either or is fine, but you definitely want to do the Sgraffito on after the paint's dried. Okay, so that's one. And the other ones, you can better see some paint colors. I definitely really like having the 2 containers of water, guys. It just makes for so much easier for keeping your paintbrushes clean. Okay, splatter on the dry area. So I'm going to just go ahead. Again, that surface needs to dry in order for me to add things to it. So I'm just putting a layer of paint down. I just arbitrarily picked orange. Okay, so we're going to let those dry. So one of the things I need for plastic wrap is exactly that, is plastic wrap. It's very flexible to move around, so it works really well. So something like this would be better than like something such as aluminum foil. I'm going to grab a little piece and let me show you what to do. So I'm going to kind of take this just so you can see paint colors and such. I want to make sure everything is visible for you. I think that's kind of decent. Okay. For the plastic wrap, I want to make sure that my color is dark enough for you to see it. So I'm just going to mix. And right now, I don't care if my colors blend on this. I want it to be quite wet, like a puddle, and dark enough so you can see the results. You can go with either a wet or a dry wash. This right here is going to be really awesome if you're looking to show some sort of a texture such as bark on a tree, or if you were trying to show a mountainside, it gives some really, really cool texture. So while it's nice and wet, like a puddle, I'm going to take this and I'm going to kind of scrunch it on here. It needs to stay on here until it dries. Okay, so we're going to leave it just like that. And that's going to be the beginnings for the plastic wrap. Let me hold it up closer so you can kind of see. The paint itself, the color is going to start to push together, and you'll see it's going to leave that really cool texture like the green one I showed you. The next one is sponge. So I just took a little piece of the sponge from, clean sponge, new sponge from the kitchen. And with this, I took a little chunk of it. Now they do make really nice sponges to be used with watercolor. I just ended up picking this because I feel like most people have some sort of a sponge. So I'm just going in here and I'm grabbing a dabble of the paint. Again, not just the pigment, it has water in it. And with my sponge, I'm going ahead and applying right to the surface. This could look really cool for so many things. I can layer it with different colors if I want to. Okay, one thing which is neat about that, think about like trickling water, a waterfall. You could actually do something really nice with foliage. Granted, this spot here is a small spot. If I had bigger, be kind of cool. Like if you think of even fall leaves, if I had the different colors, one layer on top of another on top of another. And you can let it dry even in between different colors if you want to. So I could even go back in with this. I don't want it to be too wet, and I just kind of saturated it. I could go in with slight little different colors here too, and I'll just show you really fast. So just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea. So when you're done with that, this you just want to rewash out with in water. Squeeze it out so that way if you use it again for other colors, your colors won't bleed together, especially if you're going with a lighter color. Okay, dry brush. You have some options. I mean, you certainly can use something like this. It's a fan brush. Most people don't have a fan brush. So I'm going to show you one thing that can be done just with a regular, this is just a mop brush here, or a little round brush. Okay, so, all right, ready to go. I'm going to grab a color. Works great for so many things. So I have color added to my brush, and I am going to just kind of spread it apart like so. Kind of looks like a fan, doesn't it? So I can go ahead and I could do like for tall grasses, I could do hair, I could do waves, something such as that's moving like a waterfall. I can do a lot of different things like that. Okay, so that's kind of a cool way of working with a dry brush. If you wanted smaller little lines, you could do that too. I just happen to do long, like almost looks like contour hatching lines. So they could be shorter if I wanted them to be with a dry brush. And you can do the same kind of concept also with a fan brush. I'll just kind of throw it over here really quick. I did it really light, but you guys can kind of see it. Can you see it a little bit?
Oh, cool.
So I'll just kind of like tilt it so you kind of can see. All right. So we have that one. Okay, and then next, this is really kind of cool. So let's say you're working with a sky. So I'm going to grab blue. And this is for that tissue pickup. So let me go ahead and grab some blue. All right, I'm going to just put on a wash here. It can be a wet wash or a dry wash. That's up to you. Let me just throw a little more pigment on here. Go with a purpley color. So now that I have some color down, I can take just a handy dandy tissue and I can pick and choose how much I want to scrunch it together. I can start to almost do like a cloud formation. And you can go back into it if you want to. If I want to pull it up even more, I just can kind of smush together little pieces of the tissue. And it's a nice way to pick up some of the color without having it look like you have this crispy edge. And maybe like with a certain cloud, you don't want that. You know, if you decide you want to go back in and add a little bit more color to it, you certainly can. So let's say you want to add a little bit more color to an area. You can kind of just, you know, kind of sort of like dabble it in a little bit. So, okay, so you can kind of play around, and then if you need to still pick some of that up, you can do so. And it's cool because that way you kind of get to, you know, and I'll show it to you like this. Granted, these are small little sections. If you have a bigger area to work with, it looks a little bit more effective. Okay, moving on. And I'm looking, does anybody have any questions so far? Anna, no problem. Just saw your message. Okay, so we're going to do another pickup, guys, with two different options. I have in here a cotton ball and I have Q-tips. Okay, truth be told, these were really inexpensive and they're not as good as some of the others. So for pickup purposes, they're only okay. All right, so I'm getting more paint, so I need more pigment. And again, these can be done with a wet or a dry wash. I kind of like the idea of more of working on a like very wet surface, like a puddle. Okay, so let's just see what we can do. So if you want to pick up some of it, you may need a couple of these. You can pick up, like these are for like gentle, like picking up of, let's say you decided you want to show a little bit of a texture or something in there. You can use these. I personally like using a cotton ball better. Just you have to be careful of the pieces of cotton. But you can twist it, turn it. And this gets some nice subtle changes. So if you're just looking for a little bit of something, this can be nice. Again, more subtle than the tissue for both of them. They're very, very subtle, especially the Q-tip one. But if you're looking just to do a little lift of a color and not too much, that can be very effective. So I'm going to start off with, hang on, is this dry? Yeah, this is dry enough. Okay, Sgraffito. I have a color down. Once I have my color down and it's totally dry, this is for the most part dry, you can take just something with a sharp edge. I have a hobby knife. You literally are scraping the surface. You could use a tack. You could use a end of a safety pin, some sort of a pin, and you are scraping off the top of that surface. This is like the last thing you'd want to do on your surface, because since you're scraping it away, if you go to apply more paint on there, it's really not going to lay down very nicely. But take a peek. So with that Sgraffito, like think about a couple things. If you had, think of the lake and you have the sun glistening on the lake and you get those little areas of like that almost white looking, that could be nice for that. It could be something even texture of some sort of a tree or something like that. So you can use your imagination and thoughts about how different things could be utilized. Okay, so for this last series over here, guys, you have your splatters. So I'm going to start with the on top of the orange. You can use a thicker, like a firm bristle brush, or you can use your handy dandy old toothbrush. Notice I said old toothbrush. Not your new one. You're still going to take and add water to. Oh, we're just doing the splatters, and I just said you want to make sure you're not using the toothbrush you're currently using.
Well, I mean, like, no.
I'm just messing around. I'm trying to be silly. Okay, so I covered everything else up, and this is a recommendation. So you only have this area, and I have some paint on here, and I'm literally gonna splatter it on. See, I mean, that looks kind of cool, and I'll show you that closer up in a second. Next to it, guys, I'm going to do another one, but this is going to be on a damp surface. So, because I don't want it to take too long to do, I'm going to just use a dry wash and let it dry for a second or two. Okay, and again, I have to monitor how wet it is. Here is the dry splatter, and then this one is I go ahead and let it dry for a second. Okay, with the heat on, it's not going to take too long. But with the heat here going, I'm going to leave both splatters open so I can add to this one and also put it on the one next to it. Keeping in mind, I need to cover everything else because otherwise it's going to go everywhere.
So for dry splatter, how do you do it?
So the dry splatter is just on a dry surface. The wet one on the damp is just starting to dry.
Okay. Is the damp supposed to have the same sort of element as the wet on damp, like that kind of?
Yes, and I was just going to reference that. Okay, so good comment was made, and I'll reiterate that in a second. But yes, so I don't mind that it's getting on this one too, so you can kind of see what the difference is, and I can build. So your finger is going to get dirty, but who cares? Some of you may care. I don't care.
I mean, you should wash your hands after you've done those.
So, okay. So notice that this is very specific. The one next to it, you have some of the colors are starting to bleed into the others. Very similar to this one is the wet paint on the damp surface. Okay, so those have a similar, yeah, right, they do have a similar element to them. in that they both begin to blend out a little bit. So if you're looking for more of that crisp concept, you would go with the dry splatter. If you're looking for something that kind of blends itself into each other a little bit more, then you would do it on that damp surface. Okay? And before I get to any questions, let me go ahead. I'm going to stop recording